Welcome to LabMIS.com in our lab video series on Cisco ACI. This is Metha, your instructor for this video series. For a complete list of our ACI videos, you can visit our website under the Data Center section. There you can also sign up for our newsletters to receive the latest video updates. Nexus 2K, or also known as Fabric Extender or FEX, offers a low-cost solution to connect 1GB 10GB endpoint when performance is not a top-of-mind requirement. Cisco ACI offers supports for FEX, and you can connect them to a leaf switch the same way that you did on the NXOS switches, although you definitely want to check with Cisco latest compatibility list on supported 2K module as well as the supported topology. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure Nexus 2K to be part of the ACI fabric. For our lab topology, we have an ACI fabric that consists of 2 spines, spine 1 and 2, and 4 leaves, leaf 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are being controlled by a cluster of 3 APIC server, APIC 1, 2, and 3. We are accessing the APIC web interface via an out-of-band management network VLAN 99, the subnet 172.16.99.0/24 with the APIC server, APIC number 1 of .11. On the same out-of-band switch, we have a VLAN 32, which is a server VLAN, the subnet 172.16.32.0, and then we have a Windows 2012 in that VLAN, which is a .40. And that's the machine that we use as an RDP jump box to access the web GUI of the APICs. This is pretty much the same lab topology that we used in the previous video. The 2 new components that got added into this diagrams are the pair of FEX right here, FEX 103 and 104, and they are Nexus 2248 TP, I believe. And they're uplinked straight through to the corresponding leaf, so 103 uplinks to leaf 3, and 104 is uplinked to leaf 4. So in this video, we are going to configure the 2 FEXs and add them to the ACI fabric so we can start adding or connecting endpoints to the FEX. And the endpoint that we will be using to demonstrate that is another ESXi host that we have, ESXi number 2, which are currently do home to the FEXs. When it comes to connecting FEX to ACI, I would say that everything that you know about FEX still applies. And the 2 important rules are all the traffics will be forwarded from the FEX through the uplink interface to the parents for traffic switching. So there's absolutely no local switching on the FEX, which is the way this always is for the FEX. And then rule number 2 is that no non-endpoint device can connect to the FEX host ports because all these access ports has BPDU guard turned on. So as soon as it receives the PDU, shut down the port. So the FEX access port is only meant for endpoints. If there are any other limitation on the FEX, the chances are they're still true. In terms of physical connections, the FEX uplinks in ACI can only be a straight through, so you cannot do home FEX as in certain Nexus switch model. So everything from FEX has to go straight up like how we have here in the diagram. Once a FEX is brought up, you can treat it just like a leaf switch. So it will be part of the fabric, and we'll actually show it as a separate standalone switch that you can configure as far as the ports. Generally, there are 2 options that you have to configure the FEX. Option number 1 is when you know that all of your endpoints will be dual home to FEX in a VPC manner. And then option number 2, you use that when you can have a mix of a single or a dual home endpoint. So you actually get a little bit more flexibility with option number 2. But at the same time, this will be a little bit more config. So we're going to go through both of the options in this video, and starting with option number 1. Which is always do home the endpoint in the VPC. Assuming that you have already completed the physical connections, you can go ahead and first thing that you can do is to create a FEX profile. So let me bring up the web interface to the APIC. This is going to be under Fabric and Access Policies. Go under Interface Policies, and right here under Profile, you can right click to that and click on Create FEX Profile. The FEX profile is almost like a switch profile where the profile represents the FEX. It could be a single or multiple, or I guess up to 2 because it's in the case of VPCs, FEX. Right? So this one, since we are dealing with option 1, which is always VPC, is going to be a combine of FEX 103 and 104 in our example. So we're going to call it FEX 103-104. We're not going to do the interface selector right now. We'll do that in a little bit. So go ahead and click Submit. And under the leaf profile, you just see a FEX profile that show up just like any other interface profiles that we have created in the last video. Next, we need to specify the uplink that FEX uses to connect to the leaf. And this is almost the same way as when you create an interface selector, when you map a physical interface to an interface group policy. We know that our FEX 103 will be connecting to, per this diagram, port number 1 of leaf 103. So we're going to go to our interface profile L103, and then we can add an interface. Name FEX 103. The port that it will be connecting to, or is already connected to, is 1/1. We specify that this port is connected to FEX, and tie that to the FEX profile that we have, which is FEX 103, 104. And then we'll give it a FEX ID. Right? The same rule still applies for the FEX ID. It's 100 and above. I think it runs all the way to 199 if memory serves me correctly. Actually, 101 right there. I could have read it to you as well. 101 to 199. And we'll use FEX ID 103. Submit. I always like to put the interface description on it so we know what device that interface is connected to. Description, we can say FEX 103 uplink. Submit. So that should take care of FEX 103. Next is going to be, oh, looks like I miss an asterisk there. Here you go. Make it look nice. All right, next is the FEX 104, and we do the exact same thing, which is create an interface selector for that. Call FEX 104, interface ID 1/1, same deal. FEX 104 connects to leaf 104. Connect to FEX, assign the profile, FEX ID 104, and click Submit. Go to the interface description and give it FEX 104 uplinks. Click Save. And that should be it in order to bring up the FEX. You can see it's pretty straightforward and with minimum configuration. To validate that, we're going to lock into our leaf switches. And here's the console to the two leaves that we're dealing with is leaf number 3 and leaf number 4. The command to validate the FEX is the same as the Nexus OS switches, which is show FEX. And you can see that the FEX came online already. Okay, and it came up pretty quick just because we have the FEX connected to the fabric in the past, so it has downloaded the code, upgrade, and everything. So, all right, you can see it's Nexus 2K 2248TP. Need to type the show command in full, show FEX. Looks like it's not quite ready, just because we did the 104 after. So let's just keep validating 103. We can do show interface status. Actually, let me grab that and look for 103. And we should be seeing a bunch of interfaces that belongs to our FEX 103, 48 ports. Oh, 1 gig copper. Yep, and we got some physical connectivity already to port 5 and 6 that connects to our ESXi 2, 5, and 6. It's just that the port has not been provisioned yet. It only has the physical link. Let's see if 104 came up already. Hopefully we did the configuration correctly. I don't think we make any mistakes here. It's like 103, 1/1, and then the 104 is also 1/1 on switch 4. Right, leaf 4. I'm going to do a show interface brief real quick. Yep, you can see that the link was there, although it's still saying out of service. That's the port that FEX is connected to, so the physical connections is there, status is up. So let me pause the video real quick and wait for that to come up. All right, we're back. And since it took so long and it's still not coming up, I did some troubleshooting. I think I found an issue here. So when we created the leaf profile, we did that properly. But the problem is when we did the switch policy, or actually switch profile right here for the leaf profile, L104, we did not associate it to that interface selector L104. Yep, that's probably the mistake that I made from the last video. We just didn't use it, so we didn't quite validate it, and now we're trying to use it, it's not coming up. So certainly when it's the switch profile does not have an interface selector, it's not going to push out the config. All we need to do is to add that and select the L104 for interface selector profile. I guess I'm going to have to go back to my previous videos and see if I actually missed that, or I had to, right? Otherwise I would have had it right here. Anyway, so by doing that, that should allow the APIC to push out the config to port 1/1 on leaf 104. Let's take another look at this. Show interface, yep, there you go. Here's our config. Port description came down and the admin state is up, dedicated, right? As opposed to earlier when there was no config, it showed us out of service. So now if we do show effects one more time, yep, we'll see it right there, online. Do the same thing, show interface status. Grep 104, actually 104. And there you go, we see all of the 48 ports. And one thing I want to make a note of as well, the uplinks are put in the port channel. All right, so it's just one big uplink, even though we only have one interface as a member, Ethernet 1/1, but you can see that the switch went ahead and create a port channel ID 1 for leaf 4. And same as the leaf 3, port channel 1, just because that's the first port channel. All right, so we have brought up our FEX, and it's ready to go because they're both online. And we can see the interfaces attached to our leaf switch as well. The next step is to assign the host port or access port. Like I said, we have the ESXi2 dual home to FEX 103 and 104 port 6. Although I do have a standalone single port connected to port 5, but we'll take care of that in a little bit. So right now, just concentrate on this dual homing interfaces to port number 6. Please note that you still need to maintain the port symmetry since we're dealing with VPC here, and we have a combined FEX profile going on with the FEX 103, 104. So whatever interface you use on one FEX, it has to be identical on the other FEX. So what do you do when you need to create a new VPC? You create an interface policy group. So go back to policy group, interface policy group, and create a VPC. Let's call this LM ESX2, and I was planning to use that do home connections as for data ports or data connection, right? So we'll call it dash data, and just go ahead and select our different interface policy. Spanning tree, let's turn that off. Port security, turn that off as well. AEP is going to go into our physical domain, so AEP physical. Port channel policy, ESXi not doing LACP, so it'll be mode on, PC on. Monitoring policy, STOM control, let's switch that on. And that's it, submit. All right, and the last thing that we need to do is to map the physical interface on the FEX to that policy. And this is very easy since we have a combined FEX profile and we're using the same interface on both FEX. First, let's put in a name, ESX2 dash data, and the interface on the FEX is 1-6. Which gets mapped to interface policy group of ESX2 data. Submit. Let me put some description on that. ESX2 data. There you go. Submit the change to validate. We can do show port channel summary, and we can see it right there. Interface 103/1/6. Okay, in port channel number 2, we can do show VPC extended. We should have a functioning VPC, state up, success, with the group name. One thing to make a note here is that currently we have not really pushed out any logical configuration. So even though the port itself has been prepped to allow a bunch of VLANs on it, I think it's the range of 32 to 64 for us. There's currently no active VLAN just because there's no logical configuration applied to that port. And when I say logical configuration, specifically is EPG. Okay, but at least the physical connections are up and ready. Let's take a look on leaf 4. Show port channel summary, same thing. Ethernet 104.1.6, port channel 2. Show VPC extended. Should be success. And we got a description right there. If we do show interface description, grep 104, on port 6, we should be seeing the description we just put right there, LM-ESX2 data, right, which corresponds to that. Cool. So that's the configuration that you need in order to bring up the FEXist that will be used to connect VPC endpoints. So what if you have a scenario where not all of the endpoints are dual home? Like our ESX2 over here, it has a management connection on VNIC 0 that only has a single connection to FEX 103 port 5. The option 2 allows both types of connections by splitting up the FEX profile. Instead of having the combined FEX profile that we have right here, FEX 103, 104, we split them up, so you end up with one FEX profile per FEX. This will give you a lot more flexibilities on how the interfaces are allocated. So that's what we're going to do. Right, first we need to create a new FEX profile. And we'll call that FEX 103. And one more, call FEX 104. Okay, submit. Then all we need to do is to reassign our FEX uplink to the profile we just created, which is the individual FEX. All right, so we'll go back to L3. Have to take one level down, FEX 103, and we map that to individual FEX profile. Submit. And for 104, same thing. Right there, submit. And then I'm going to go back under the combined FEX 103, 104 and delete the interface selector right here, because this guy has no reference to FEX anymore because we reassign our FEX to its own FEX profile. So let me get rid of that. Okay, and hopefully a port channel is gone. You can see no port channel anymore. So now let's go through the port selector configuration, interface selector configuration, starting with the standalone port 5 on FEX 3. So we go to the FEX 103, add an interface selector. We'll name it LM-ESX2. This one will be used for management, so I'm going to call it dash management. Interface ID 1/5. Since it's a standalone interface, a single interface, we can reuse the access auto physical interface policy group, right? Because it's a single port, not port channel or in a VPC. Click submit. And then for the dual home connections, since we don't have a share FEX profile anymore, we need to add the port to the switch individually. Starting with FEX 103, will be called LM-ESX2 data. 1/6, and we put that in LM ESX2 data interface policy group. Right, that's a VPC. Let me add some interface description. That's actually a management. Oh, actually, that was data, huh? I thought I clicked on the management one. Change that. Data. And management. All right, so that for FEX 103. Then we still have the interface 6 on FEX 104 we need to configure, which is right here. You can add that. And that is LM ESX2 data. The other flexibility of doing it this way is that you don't need to use the same interface number on both FEX. Right here you have a freedom of using whatever available ports that you have on the FEX. Right, for us it's still 1/6. And as long as you select the same interface policy groups for the VPC, the system will make sure that this interface right here will get added to the same VPC. There you go. Give the interface description, and we should be done. All right, so going back to leaf 3, which just did have the port channel. I guess it got deleted and then recreated. Yeah, but you can see the port channel ID changed as well. It used to be 1 and 2. Now it became 3 and 4 apparently. Okay, so, but it's not a problem. We're just going to let the system maintain port channel ID. All right, for us, making sure that 103/1/6 is active inside a VPC. Right, that's all we really care. Port channel 4, right there. So same thing. Show port channel summary. Yep, active. And then VPC. Right there, success. And we show interface description. Grept 104. Oh, actually, that should be 103. We should be seeing 2 ports configured. /5, which is the management port, and then /6, which is the data port in the VPC. And that's all there is to it, adding FEX to ACI Fabric. The idea is pretty much the same, where you add a interface profile, but instead of having that tied to a switch profile, the FEX itself has a FEX profile that represents either a single FEX or a combined pair of FEX. And then you create the interface selector the same way and map it to an interface policy groups. So like I said, if you want flexibility, go with option number 2, where you create individual FEX profiles. Otherwise, just to save yourself a little bit of configuration, because you don't need to create 2 interface selectors, just use the combined FEX profile if all your hosts are all VPC. And that wraps up our video on ACI FEX. You can visit our website to view an extensive list of our lab videos and sign up to get access to additional lab contents. Thank you for watching LabMIS.com, and I'll see you guys in the next video.